Southern California, it's the car culture capital of the world. Sooner or later, cool cars just seem to find their way here. But some are rarer than others. Particularly the icon that I'm getting up early, real early, to go drive. The Mercedes-Benz W194. Forget your Bentley blowers and your Lamborghini Miuras. This car is rarer than all of those, with only 10 of them ever built. Today it's worth over $20 million, and it would go on to inspire the first ever modern day supercar. Which is why I consider it to be a big thing. These are the poster cars on your wall. Now, let's take a closer look at them. Go for a drive. Find out what makes them so special and why they are the big thing. The W194 would put Mercedes back on the world stage, but first it had to race. Le Mans, Mille, Carrera Panamericana. Every inch, every ounce, every last horsepower were forged with one thing in mind: to race against the clock and beat the opposition. So my first impression of the W194 is that it's not too intimidating, but you've got to get comfortable to it moving around. The 6-cylinder motor really likes to be revved, and that's what's great about it. It's got enough bottom-end torque and mid-range to be quick. The 4-speed synchro mesh gearbox shifts real well, but the steering is slow and the brakes are not so great. Still though, it's an engaging drive, and it's easy to see why this car gained its legendary status. You gotta remember, times were tough for Mercedes. Germany in the 1950s was a country still recovering from the Second World War, and Mercedes were only just getting back to making cars. The number one priority was to dominate in motorsports once again, and in the interest of saving time and money, the path of least resistance back to the racetrack was to utilize existing parts from the old 300 sedan, namely the engine, transmission and suspension. But these parts were all made of super heavy steel, so to get the car down to the fighting weight, the engineers had to get creative and save weight with the body. That meant an aluminum exterior skin and a completely bespoke tubular frame chassis, which ended up weighing just 150 pounds. To keep the car stiff though, the sills were raised and widened, which forced the doors to be hinged off the roof. And just like that, the iconic Gullwing was born. The 300SL Super Lightweight was ready to race, which is why in 1952, after a 22-year absence, Mercedes returned to Le Mans to compete against the likes of Aston, Ferrari, Jag and Porsche with this car, the W194. They took first and second place, by the way. Not bad for the new kid on the block. And now I'm driving one. It's got number 5, let's not forget, of 10 built, aluminum body. It's more aggressive, it's loud, it's buzzy, it's drony. You know, it's the type of thing that your ears are going to be ringing at the end of the day, but I'm not going to be caring about that. So for me, the interesting thing is that the 300SL production car, the W198, has more horsepower than its predecessor, the W194 race car, which is staggering because normally a race car would have more power than the street car. They both have the same inline-6, 3-liter motor, but the difference is the W194 race car is fed via 3 Solex carburetors, producing about 190 horsepower. The production 300SL, pumping out 220 horsepower, gets its power and fuel delivered through a mechanical fuel injection pump, which is more efficient, more effective, and produces more horsepower. The car I'm driving right now finished 4th in the 1952 Mille, and back in 2019, I had the opportunity to run the modern day Mille in a 1955 300SL road car. All I can tell you is that the Mille Miglia is an extremely grueling few days of driving. You're up at 5 a.m. in the car 14 hours a day, pulling 20-hour days. It's a lot of rushing around, getting lost, hurry up and waiting, and some spirited overtaking. It's a non-stop adrenaline rush. But La Dolce Vita? It is not. My advice, if you want to see Italy from a car, don't do the Mille Miglia. But it did give me a massive appreciation for all those old school road racers like Sterling Moss, who set the lap record for the Mille Miglia driving the 1,000 miles without stopping in 10 hours, 7 minutes and 48 seconds in his Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR of the same year. But I'll save that story for another day. From the moment you first see the W194, it's a really special experience and everything about it is dramatic, especially getting into it. And trust me, I should know, as I must have hopped in and out of this car at least 50 times today. There's a real delicate balance getting into the car. You've got to step over that wide sill, slide down into that tight, high bucket seat, put the steering wheel back on, and then fire it up. It covers all the senses. It sounds good, feels good, smells good, and probably even tastes good. And there's nothing intimidating about driving the car, other than the fact of its $20 million price tag. There's something special and unique about all Gullwings, but especially these W194 race cars. And for me, it's a real special moment to actually have the opportunity to drive such a historical car. To end the 1952 race season, Mercedes had one final adventure, and that was down in Mexico. The boys from Stuttgart took 4 cars south of the border to run the Carrera Panamericana, the most grueling road race in the world. A victory in the 3,400-kilometer race through Mexico would prove beyond doubt that Mercedes had the best sports cars on the planet and would boost sales of the regular road cars. You know the story. Win on Sunday, sell on Monday. But that only works if you win. And luckily for Mercedes, they had a winner on their hands. Carl Kling and Heinz Klenk came home first. And that was despite hitting a Vulture, which went through the windshield at 250 kilometers. They averaged a speed of 165 kilometers per hour, which is still crazy today. Hermann Lang finished second in car number 3. The actual car that I'm driving today. And that, people, is racing history right here. That was the end of the W194's racing season, but it was just the beginning of the story for the 300 SL. Enter New York sports car importer Max Hoffman. He saw the potential in the race-winning W194, so he flew to Germany and suggested to Mercedes that they create a road-going version of the car for sale in the USA, even offering to order 1,000 cars for the American market, sight unseen. Naturally, Mercedes agreed, and the rest is history. An icon was born, and 70 years later, the SL is still going strong, but it all started with this.
Without the 194, Max Hoffman would never have convinced Mercedes to build this as a road-going car. I have to say, the race car is just amped up because it's unbelievable. The performance for a 17-year-old car is just kind of nuts. To sum it up, it's exciting. It's what's great about all vintage cars. Looks good, sounds good, drives good. So without a shadow of a doubt, to me, this 194 was the beginning of the modern era supercar. It's mind-boggling to me how well this car performs.
Why does this car still matter? And why is it such an icon? Such a big thing? Still turning heads 70 years later. Why is it instantly recognizable on everybody's top 10 wish list? Welcome at any motoring event anywhere in the world? Well, because despite all of its achievements and its multi-million-dollar price tag, it's still an engaging, rewarding, challenging, and stimulating, usable daily driver. I should know, having just covered 266 kilometers, that's 165 miles in it. It's a breathtaking car that's stunning to look at. You know the type that forces you to look back at it once you walk away, a machine begging for you to drive it hard. And if it wasn't a $20 million car, I'd own one in a heartbeat. The Mercedes W194 is the big thing.